Okay, I think we are possibly live. I'm not sure. Let me just have a look at chat, whether we have anybody joining yet. So yes, would be lovely to, if you could introduce yourselves in the chat. Lovely to see you all here. Brilliant that you could have joined us this morning. Well, afternoon actually, just looked at the time. So just let me know, please, where you're coming from, who you are, what is the weather like in your place. I will wait a little bit, for everybody to join us before I start. So just feel free to type in the chat who you are. I can see Agnes. Spain, sunny weather in Basque Country today. Well, England is kind of like looking out of the window, a bit mixture. We've got kind of a bit of a sunshine, a bit of a cloud, not very warm. I'm really jealous of everybody who has got the sunny weather at the moment. So I'm seeing people are joining because obviously we've got so many different sessions running. So we'll see how many are in live, how many will be watching then on recording. Hello, Lindsay, lovely, from West Yorkshire, secondary French. Lovely to see you here. We've got Monique from Switzerland. Still overcast, yeah, with a bit sunshine, brighter, higher up. Yes, I can see, I can appreciate that. Well, got really busy morning today, and the afternoon even busier. So let's have a look. We've got now Caroline from Tonbridge. Lovely to see you here, Caroline, French tutor. Fantastic. Yeah, well, I'm in Cheshire, Cheshire, England, so the weather is kind of up and down usually here. So lovely to see you. Let's wait a couple more minutes and then I will make a start to see how many people will joining. I'm aware of that people are probably joining from other sessions as well. We got a hello from Germany. Wow, I spent 4 years living in Germany, south of Germany, Esslingen area. So really great memories of that time. I wish I could go back in time, but obviously not that easy to do. One of the best times of my life, really. Yes, yeah, absolutely lovely. Let's give it another minute or so, and then we'll make a start. I believe that probably some people will sometimes when you have a feedback at the end and you have questions, so it's easy to maybe overrun in another session. So we'll see how things go. Keep typing in the chat where you're coming from, what you teach. Well, yes, materials will be available after the session. Yes, I'm happy to share all of my slides and also point you out to where you can download any of the resources or ideas that you see today. So feel free, yes, absolutely, to get them and adapt them and use them in your own practice if you think they will be useful to you. Yes, happy to share anything. Yeah, I'm looking, it's 48. I think I will make a start. So we'll see if people are joining us later on. I will just, then carry on. So let me just share my screen and I will make a start. Right. Oops, a little bit too far. So I go to the start. Okay, so, well, good afternoon, everyone. It's lovely to see you all here and fantastic that you could join us today at the language show. Today, I will be talking to you about preparing students for the writing exam. Let me just move my camera a little bit high up so I can actually see my slides better. So yes, we'll be talking about preparing students for the writing exam, specifically looking at the learning strategy and teaching strategy of modeling. We will be looking at different types of modeling and also specifically at live modeling. So if I could ask you, because I haven't got a moderator with me, this is not how the platform works. It's a Zoom webinar. So if I could ask you to put any questions you have into the Q&A section, and I will answer them at the end. I will have a look at the section and I'll answer them at the end. My intention is to speak to you for about 30 minutes or so and then give you opportunities to ask any questions should you have any additional questions. So feel free then obviously to pop your questions in. Just to give you a little bit of background about myself, I'm just looking, my slides don't seem to be moving. Not sure why they know. Oh, there we go. Just to give you a little bit of background about myself, so you know who you are, who I am. I am a subject leader for MFL. I teach at a secondary comprehensive school in West Midlands. I'm also specialist leader in education for languages, research lead, GCSE examiner for Odexcel. I actually mark the higher writing. I'm fellow of Chartered College of Teaching and also a proud member of the Association for Language Learning Council. Now, if you are on Twitter, you can follow me on Twitter, but if you are not social media fan, you can also email me. You will see my contact details on all of my slides, so feel free to reach out via email. I would like to draw your attention to the QR code, which you can obviously scan, and it will take you to my blog page, where you can download all of the resources that you will see today. They are on my resource page of the blog page. And they are obviously for German, because I'm a Germanist. I'm not sure how much you know about me, but I'm a Germanist. But it's quite easy to adapt all of the resources into any language that you teach. So feel free to have explore, to have a look, and just take whatever you want, adapt it, use it in your practice if you think they will be useful. So what will I focus on in today's session? In today's session, we'll be looking specifically at modeling and why is it important and how it can actually cut down on the time of our instruction. And we will be looking at different types of modeling, different types of models. We will look at specifically live modeling, how we can set it up successfully, and how much actually we can benefit from it. I have started to use live modeling and visualize about 4 years ago, and it's been a real big game changer for me. In terms of students being able to access things easier, breaking things down, but also saving time on unnecessary questions, after I set up the task, because obviously through the modeling, students know immediately and exactly what they need to do. And then we also look at live modeling in terms of metacognitive marking, for feedback, and how it can actually benefit our students to move forward and give a meaningful feedback. So as we know, modeling is, a central feature of effective teaching. It is basically a process, that is enabling our students to develop the knowledge, the vocabulary, the structures, the skills, but also the concepts, such as grammar, so that they can apply them to a range of situation, communicative functions. So together, modeling with explaining is, one of the vital elements of any, languages teacher's toolkit. So obviously, let's have a look, what we can then do in terms of modeling a little bit closer. If you are not familiar with the book, Making Every MFL Lesson Count by James Maxwell, I strongly recommend it. He breaks down a lot of research behind the modeling in the book, and it's really accessible, specific for MFL as well. Now, why modeling and why is it so important? Now, many of us have probably encountered the situation that we feel like, well, I have taught something and I expect you to know it. And really, this is a little bit, I would say, a curse of the expert teacher. The expert, we know our subject and we know our curriculum, we know our content, and we deliver it to our students. And often we feel, well, we have gone through this. Why are you struggling to maybe write a piece of writing, a paragraph? Because often we think that just because we taught something, student will know it, but that's not always the case. So, being able to model to them step by step how to approach a task, not just obviously pronunciation, because we model all the time when it comes to pronunciation, but actually modeling how to write, which is a slightly different skill than practicing the language. I think it's essential that we do that. Students also need to have, after our modeling, plenty of opportunities to actually practice, deliberately practice as a guided practice, but also then obviously leading to the independent practice, which takes time. And as we know, writing is one of the productive skills, and it really takes place, to be able to write independently towards the end of sequence of your lessons. And it requires quite a few lessons to get there. It's not going to be something we can do maybe the second lesson after we have introduced something. It does require quite extensive, instruction. So why modeling, and what do I mean with modeling expectations? Really, when we want to model, and in the past, I would often model on my whiteboard, my big whiteboard. and then I would set off students to write, and I still would have lots and lots of questions. So, you know, making good use of your visualizer, and it doesn't have to be an expensive visualizer. You don't have to have a software to make the best use out of it. You can have really simple Hue camera, or, you know, something a little bit maybe more refined. Doesn't have to cost fortune, but I would say model everything in almost live true situations. So when I mean model under the visualizer, I would actually take the exam paper or the template that I'm using for the independent piece of writing, or I would take the exercise book, and I really break it down for my students, what they do, where they write it, how they plan it. Because my experience from modeling it on the whiteboard, you know, like big teacher's whiteboard, students still struggled to transfer that into their book. It was like almost they could not follow the thought process. So, you know, in terms of modeling, what do we model for the writing? Well, we really model everything. We model how to plan a task, because often students are concerned with the task completion. You know, they just want to have it done. They don't think about it. They go straight into the writing. And we are the expert learners here as well, you know, not just teachers, but also learners, because obviously we all, you know, completed a degree, we all done teaching, you know, PGC, etc. So we know how to go about it. So we need to show them how to plan a task, what it is we need to actually do before we even start the task. We can use modeling to spell difficult words, because we can use symbols and give them mnemonics so they can remember how to write certain words, the tricky words. We could model things such as, you know, how to extend simple sentence and make it more complex. So using, for example, time phrases, you know, your time, manner, place, how to extend a simple opinion into more complex opinion using justifications. So when we talk about modeling, we want to start from simple and show students how we can make it complex, you know, in terms of what the knowledge they have in their head, not necessarily just going and trying to look up lots of new words, you know, in a dictionary. We want them to be able to use correct punctuation and grammar. And again, this is what we can model, we can show them. We can also show them what a good one looks like, so they know what they are aiming for, what it is they're trying to achieve. So, you know, when we think in terms of preparing for exams, and I don't want anyone to think that, you know, we're learning a language just to pass an exam. You know, my belief is that learning a language is for communicative purposes, for our students to be able actually to speak the language. But we also know then, you know, for all stakeholders, you know, the exams are important as well. You know, they are important for our students, they are important for our parents, and they're important for our schools. So guiding our students through what it is that is expected from them in terms of, you know, being successful in examination. So drawing their attention to answering all of the bullet points, you know, drawing their attention to extending their answers, and drawing their attention to justifying their opinions, but also to use the variety of language and structures, which all comes from the exam marking criteria. But we also have to think about, do our students actually know what that means, using variety of language? Well, we do, because we are the expert teachers. But what about them? What does it look like using variety of language? And I will be showing you in a minute what I use to demonstrate what it's meant with it when we look at construction and deconstruction modeling. So why is modeling so highly effective? Well, these are some of the issues that I encounter as an examiner when I mark writing for the exam board. And the modeling allows us actually addressing some of these issues. Often I see students who interpret the task too narrowly. So they are focusing only on a certain aspect of the writing. So sometimes they leave the whole bullet point out and just focus on one or two, and the entire writing is only based on that. Now, our students need to know that this is not going to be good enough. You know, this is going to probably hinder them to achieve the top marks. Another issue that I often encounter as an examiner is that the task is interpreted wrongly. Now, what that means is that obviously students struggle with decoding the meaning of the bullet point. And again, through the modeling, we can show them how they can possibly even decode tricky words from the context of the words around it. So sometimes the issues that I see that students are focusing, for example, on disadvantages when advantages were specifically requested, so they, advantages of your town, but they're talking about disadvantages. And again, this will affect content and range of language. Very often I see as an examiner that students struggle with transferring the knowledge and accuracies into different contexts, especially when we talk about, the grammatical knowledge. So for example, students have been taught, past perfect tense in the topic of holidays, and then they have to write about their work experience and they use the wrong tenses, or they have to write about their future plans and again, they use the wrong tenses, or they mix two tenses together. So they have parts of it in the past, parts of it in the future. So really through modeling and extensive practice, this can be really quite easily tackled. Now, obviously modeling itself on its own is not going to fix everything. We will need the practice and the rehearsal for it as well, especially when we look at retrieval practice, for example, making sure that what we teach is interleaved and spaced out, so mixing in a variety of concepts. But I don't want to go into too much of a retrieval practice, but obviously these things go hand in hand. So modeling on its own, it's not going to just fix all of that. It is, it's more complex. So importance of modeling as instruction, can't be underestimated really, because for us teachers, it really enables us to build, to allow our students to build different strategies. It allows us also to embed that linguistic awareness, and their understanding into long-term memory. Because when it comes to writing, which is a productive skill, as we know, like speaking, students are able to do this after extensive practice, and we really need them to be able to write from long-term memory. Because, for example, the exam, they're not going to have access to their exercise book, to their sentence builders, to their knowledge organizers, or to their dictionaries. So really need to make sure that this linguistic knowledge is embedded in long-term memory and they can write from long-term memory. It's also, modeling is really a process, which is led by us teachers, the experts, but it can be also a process that is assisted by our students as novices, because as I show you in a minute, we can use our students to help us with modeling using co-construction. So we're drawing the ideas from our students. So our students contribute. It's not just teacher-led, but it's also student-led. It also allows us, to benchmark the excellence, because many people would argue that, modeling is really effective for lower prior attaining students, but even our high attaining students need to know what it is they're aiming for. They need to see a model of excellence or what a good one looks like, what it is they're aiming for. How do they know that what they've written is successful? And we mustn't forget that some of our high attaining students might be very good at speaking, but they might struggle with writing. Or vice versa, they are very good at writing, but they struggle with speaking, because obviously it's different cognitive demands on speaking than on writing. In writing, students have time to actually reflect and to think and to check. But in speaking, it is in the moment, so that often in speaking, we would see shorter sentences, we would see, more mistakes appearing than in writing. So writing is a skill where students really can excel. It allows us also to show students how to actually, plan, draft, edit, and refine responses. Because often, and I see that mostly by boys, and I don't know whether that is the same in other people's context, but I often see that it's about task completion, getting things done very quickly. I've written it, it's done. We need to teach the skill also of editing. Okay, let's have a look. What did I write here? Can I make it better? How can I make it better? What could I add to make it better with the repertoire, with the language that I have in my head? Because, as I said, there might not be access to dictionaries or other, tools to help them in that moment of the exam, for example. It also provides opportunities for retrieval, because when we model writing and we're zooming in, so we might not want our students to straight away write the entire piece of writing. We might just look at paragraph, breaking that step by step. It gives them opportunity to retrieve the vocabulary, the knowledge they have gained previously, and practice it in action. Now, if your school uses Rosensheim Principles of Instruction as a teaching framework, modeling appears at least in 4 of the principles. Now, if you're not familiar with the Rosensheim Principles of Instruction, it was a publication presented 10 teaching or learning principles or strategies, if you want to call them as, which are really supported by research, both from the cognitive science, but also research on the classroom practices of master's teachers. They are really very highly effective strategies which could be applied in all contexts, in all ages and subjects, and as they are important, and they focus on a teaching, which is effective in all lessons, not just specific lessons. And when we talk about that they are research-based, it means that we are not basing our teaching and learning or strategies on hunches or what we think might work, but they are obviously the best bets from the research. And they also, form the direct link between the research and classroom. So they tell us how we can implement these findings in our teaching practice. So let's have a look in which actually principles modeling is featuring really strongly. So if you look at the principle 2, we have got presenting new materials in small steps with students practice after each step. So yes, chunking, but also modeling, because we know that working memory is very limited. Pupils are unable to process too much material at once. So when we come to modeling of writing, we want to go micro, we want to look and zoom in. We can show our students the big picture, what it is they're aiming for, but then we want to zoom in and give pupils, more context for their learning, breaking down, looking at the steps. We want to also allow them then plenty of opportunity to practice. So once we have modeled, it's your guided practice, you're guiding them through it, then it comes to the deliberate practice when the students actually do it. They can still work with pairs, with a friend to help to reconstruct, but obviously we're building them up, then they can do it independently as well. Looking at principle 4, that talked about providing models and worked examples. Well, there is lots and lots of different ways we can obviously support our students in terms of modeling and worked examples. It is important because this gives students the cognitive support they need. So we can include, as we mentioned previously, the worked examples. So we're showing here step by step, demonstrating how to perform a task or how to solve a problem. So we can use deconstruction modeling for it. So where we look at an example, and I'll show you one in a minute. We can look at comparison models. So showing students, again, 2 pieces of writing, and they have to look at, maybe even work in pairs to look, what makes that model good or how the model can be improved. Showing them the model of excellence, which, high attaining students definitely want to see, because they want to know what it is, the grade 9 piece of work looks like, what it is they're aiming for, what features does that writing need to have. Using the live modeling, where actually the teacher is modeling the thought process, and we'll look at it in detail in a bit. And then also looking and using co-construction modeling, where we use our students as an active ingredient, so they actively participate. They're not just observing, they're just not watching, they actually are drawing into the process. The worked examples also provide the physical representation of the completed task, so showing them these exemplar paragraphs or artifacts. And as mentioned previously, we're narrating our thought processes to help our students. So here are some examples of worked examples that we use. These are booklets that we use for example, GCSE. There is example of foundation, but also higher. The original idea came from Mr. Courier. I think he designed them for Spanish. And with his permission, I have adapted it into German. So if you want to have access to the Spanish, I can point you to the right direction, at the end of the webinar. If you reach out to me, as I said, my email address is there. I'm more than happy to send you links where you can find his resources. So what you can see here is typical foundation questions. This is based on Edexcel because, as mentioned earlier, if we follow the Edexcel exam board, or you've got a picture task, and again, you've got modeled response for the picture description, and then the opinion phrase. So students would have an example piece of writing. We will break things down. We will practice extensively in a class, lots of descriptions. We would use sentence builders. I often share with my students a sentence builder based on a mnemonic palm. which you probably know, because they have to describe the people, action, location, mood. So we're looking at things such as, for example, the weather, or whether the people on the picture look happy or sad. And then we have that opinion phrase, express an opinion on a theme. And when I provide that a sentence builder, it would have lots of words in there, so they can highlight the words they know, but then they would have the other page blank, and over time they would be filling the vocabulary in there. So they have variety of vocabulary to fit different types of pictures. Now, if you're looking at our lowest prior attaining students, we might want to give them vocabulary which is quite generic. If you're looking at exam passing, and as I say, I'm not here to promote languages is to learn only pass an exam, but we know we are accountable for our students' results. Parents want to see results, students want to see what the grade is. So there are pressures that we have to obviously prepare them for the examination as well. For students who are struggling the most, as mentioned earlier, the lowest prior attaining students, you might want to give them vocabulary for each section that is easily transferred to any context. So teaching words like, on a picture, there are lots of persons, okay, because it's easy word to remember in German. When you say, action, we want to teach them the higher frequency verbs, which they can be used in lots of contexts. When we talk about location, we could teach, they are inside, they are outside, and that would cover the bullet point of the description. So we want to give them maybe vocabulary which is quite generic and could be transferred into lots of contexts to support them with that. Then you've got an example of the 40 to 50 word task and 80 to 90 word task. So again, breaking it down, looking at what tenses do we need to use, using present, using past, using opinions, giving them an example of response to each of the bullet points. Again, practice it. When I practice with my students, I look at one bullet point at a time. So instead of doing a lot of different, themes, we would look, for example, when we do picture description, we would do picture description just across lots of topics. And then we would look at lots of opinions, across. If you're looking at past tense sentences, again, looking at a lot of bullet points across past tense, rather than doing everything at once, just to try to lower the cognitive load. So these are some examples of the booklet that we use. We could also use things like scaffolds. So when we look at the Principle 8, for example, from Rosenstein, talks about providing scaffolds for difficult tasks. Well, your modeling is a form of a scaffold. For example, live modeling is a form of a scaffold. So when we talk about scaffolding, we know that it's a temporary support to assist our learners. Again, it allows them to successfully complete tasks. We want over time this scaffold to be removed because they will have to be able to do that independently. But again, we are modeling here, steps that are required to complete the task. And we could, make that modeling easier for them using, for example, structure strips or writing frames. We could, when we look at the translation, for example, on the right-hand side, you've got the box translation, providing, first of all, the scaffold that they have, each letter in a different box, which might be slightly easier on a cognitive demand. So depending, obviously, on your students, teacher thinking aloud as they're completing the task. How do I go about it? Providing things like checklist. Have you checked everything that you have included in there? Also modeling, for example, the task against students' own, so they compare it. So showing a task you have produced and then what the students produce, and look at how close they are with the success criteria, for example. And finally, the fourth one is really Principle 10, which again, goes hand in hand with modeling, because it talks about requiring and monitoring independent practice. We know that students, to come to the stage of the independent writing, they need to have lots and lots of opportunities to practice, via guided practice, which is our modeling, deliberate practice, then to the independency. Because what we really want is, we want our students to, develop the automatic recall, and that comes with the practice. But we can use modeling also for metacognitive marking, and I will be showing it to you in a bit. So obviously providing live feedback, like circulating, but also using that modeling for the metacognitive marking, where you can actually model again under the visualizer, your marking process, what is good, what is not good, how we can improve it, and it provides students also with the opportunity of reflection. So let's have a look at some concrete examples, so because I'm pretty sure you are interested in seeing something concrete, not just talking about, the research behind it. So what you can see here is deconstruction modeling. The template is actually inspired by Morgan MFL, just in case you know her. And you can also find some templates on her. I think she has a blog as well. So what you got there is a model text. You can have one which is really, really excellent, or you can have one which is maybe not 100% hitting it, and students will have to spot how they can make it, better. So it's really up to them to see, so they understand the success criteria in terms of exam. So what you got there is, as we mentioned previously, one of the criteria is that students use variety of language. Well, what does it mean, variety of language? We know because we're the experts, but for them, you might be as well speaking, I don't know, another foreign language. So, asking students to take their highlighters, for example, find connectives. We want to have variety of connectives. Find adjectives, find opinion phrases, different tenses, for example. So this is what we mean with variety of language. Now, of course, we need to make sure that our students understand what is a connective, what is an adjective. That's why we have the extensive phase before we ask them to do a piece of writing. So looking at models together and taking them apart. You can have a model there which, for example, doesn't have all of the three tenses. And then you can tell them, well, has it got everything what you need? What is it missing? So get them thinking about, how to write and what to write. Using comparison models, so giving them two pieces of writing, and they could work on this in pairs. So working in pairs, have a look at these two writings. Can you tell which one is better than the other? Can you say, why is it better? Can you say, how can you improve them? So before we even go into independent writing, we want our students to understand what it is they need to do, in terms of success in their examination. We could also hide some mistakes in there, and they have to spot them. So another way of approaching it, comparison models like here, that you give them different tasks, and this is actually came from Sharon Barnes, who shared this, where you have two different themes, and students first have it jumbled up, and they need to decide which bullet points go with which theme, and then also challenge themselves to answer that missing bullet point. You give them also the exam mark scheme, so that's what they're working towards, that's what they're comparing it with, and then deciding which of the writing is more complex than the other. So they look and see what it is we're looking for to make it, that best possible piece they can come up with. Models of excellence, sharing really a grade 9 piece of writing, and then asking students again if they can work individually or they can work in pairs. What makes it that grade 9? Do you understand the grammatical concepts and structures that you have to use to achieve that grade 9? Because often as an examiner, I see, like teachers say to students, oh, you need to have some idioms in there. You need to put some wow phrases in there. And there are so many times that I, as an examiner, see that something is thrown there just randomly because teachers say you have to use this phrase, is a wow phrase, but it doesn't actually fit with the theme of what they're writing. And you could almost, even though as examiners we don't know the names of students or where they're coming from or which school they come from, you can see almost that these kids, sometimes must come from the same school because they're putting the same phrases in there, same style of writing. So be careful when you're training your students to use their wow phrases, that actually it makes sense and that it flows in the text, that it's not just randomly thrown in there just to tick the box. I have used idioms, I have used, phrases which are, uncommon, being aware of that. So when we talk about live modeling, yes, we're talking about doing it live under the visualizer. This is the teacher that walks through the learning process themselves, showing students how to do things, highlighting the key procedures and the thinking that underpins them, having a clear plan, across the lessons, because it might take you a couple of lessons to go through that. It's not just something maybe done in one lesson, sharing the I do model, actively discussing it and picking it apart. So in terms of visualizer, I will show you the visualizer that I use, not expensive, and also stuff in my department. So we're looking at modeling the process, highlighting also with what was learned previously, trying to hook the learning. So looking at the topics, the vocabulary, annotating the task, actually going step by step over it, what it is I need to do. proof checking. So trying to model also the metacognitive regulation, what do I do before the task? What do I do during the task and after the task? Because often these are the steps that are missed, but missed not necessarily by the highest attaining students, because the ones who achieve the grade 9, they have a lot of thinking about how they go about the writing. And that's why they're achieving these high marks, because they plan, they think actively, what is it I'm going to write about? Then they obviously write it, and they also check. So in terms of visualizers, I use the IPEVO one, because on the right, I think it's around £100, get your department to invest, or you can just use the Hue camera. It doesn't have to be any expensive software. I know that there are very expensive visualizers out there, but I think just an ordinary camera will do the trick. You don't need anything really fancy. So I have put some recordings on my slide. I'm not going to share them for you now and play them, because you're not here to watch my tutorial. I will give you access to my slides, and you can click on them and you can watch it, how I model, the writing task. But I also got there a modeling of reading task when it comes to a target language question, because often my students, high attaining students, might struggle with that if it's purely in German. So it's really modeling how to construct their writing. I don't allow copying whilst I'm modeling. So when I'm modeling, students' pens are down and they are watching, and I'm actually writing it under the visualizer. We first of all plan it. So we look at each bullet point first from a grammatical point of view. What tense do we need? Is it present? Is it past? Is it future? If you need past tense, past perfect tense in German, for example, I teach it using a burger. So I ask students, draw that burger somewhere in the corner of your writing. Give you also some past participles examples that you could use for that writing. If you talk about future tense, again, put somewhere in a corner, structure of the future tense, so you're aware of where the verb goes, where does the infinitive go, because in German the word order is the most trickiest. When we use justification like connectives, because, and I think that, or although, or when, again affecting the word order, I would tell them put a little short structure in the corner so you have that visual what you need to be checking afterwards. Then we look at the bullet points, and then we start writing. So I usually get students to co-construct with me, so they give me ideas and we lay it all out step by step. After it's been modeled, then the students have a go themselves. Okay, so in my modeling stage, they're only watching, they're not writing anything down, there is no notes taken. I want them actively engaged with the process as I'm walking through it. So it's really breaking it down. So some examples of co-construction modeling that we have done. This is a template that has been inspired by Elena Diaz, and you can follow her on Teacher Diaz. She also writes a blog. You can download lots of resources for Spanish from her, really, really useful. So what you can see there is students actually, this is their independent writing. This is no dictionaries, this is no knowledge organizer, this is from memory. You've got example for year 7, and this is the first term, our first half term on the right. What I want them then to do is highlight what language they used, and that's what you have. Again, the variety of language, and also the checklist, have I included everything? And then on the left, I think you got year 8 task again. That will be done all independently then from memory. But bear in mind, this takes time, so as you plan your sequence of lessons, okay, that will be towards the end of the sequence when students are ready actually to do the production. Now, when we come to the live modeling under the visualizer, again, extremely powerful. What I do is I collect students' examples of work. So they've done their writing, independent writing. I will go around the classroom and maybe pick up 6 or 7. I will put them under the visualizer and I will mark them whilst the rest of the class marks alongside with me. Now, even though students have written different pieces of writing, they haven't written the same pieces of writing, they will make similar type of mistakes. So this way, they are engaged actually with the feedback. I could just mark that papers and all the students are interested in grades and marks, which at the moment now I don't give, because all they want to see is just the grades and marks. Many of them actually don't even read the written feedback. Many of them, the nice, high achieving girls will be reading it, but many of them don't read it. Where if I model it under the visualizer and I walk them through it, they are engaging with it. So where you see the green pen marking, that will be the students marking. Where you got the red, that will be the teacher. Sometimes I will then collect after them as well and check, or circulate around and check then that they have corrected the mistakes. So in German, it will be common mistakes such as capital letters for nouns, the EI and IE sounds. Often it would be the word order. So when we have the because, the verb has to go at the end. Often there would be mistakes such as, leaving the past participle out, or maybe the auxiliary verb out. So even though their writing is different, it is still, the same common mistakes. And then we would put it onto whole class feedback, looking at, okay, this is the most common mistakes we've been making. Okay, how can we fix it? So the students are actively engaged with it. And I found this more powerful than me, marking, everything and giving students responses back. We definitely don't do the flick and tick, because that's just wasted time, in my opinion. So just to close things off, I know it was a lot of information at once. Learning is changing long-term memory. If nothing has changed, nothing has been learned. Live modeling is really effective and time effective in a sense that it cuts down on the unnecessary questions and time wasting in a lesson. So when you show students exactly what you want, they will write exactly what you want. And you don't have hundreds of questions afterwards. Miss, where do I write this? Where do I write that? So let me just have a look at, your Q&A questions. I can see that there is something in there. Okay. Do we have modeling resources in French, or any links that you could send us? I will have a look. I can point you to some colleagues who are doing stuff for French as well. I think some of these worked examples have been actually translated possibly into French. So I can point you to the colleague who has done the booklets in Spanish, and I think on his web page, on his blog, there will be some examples which you could download. I have just sent you an assessment example instead of traditional correcting to your email. Okay, I will have a look. Yes, you showed a few slides referring to a booklet. Is this something available to download, please? Yes, it is on my blog resource page. You can download it in German, but I can point you also, I can send you an email back, point you to the colleague who has done it in Spanish, and there might be possibly some French one as well. I know definitely there is a Spanish one, but I'm not 100% about the French one. Yes, of course I can share it, okay? So drop me an email. I will get back to you probably most likely tomorrow, because today, after this session, I'm going to see our new puppy, which we are getting, so I won't be able to answer straight away, but definitely tomorrow. Yeah, I teach Spanish. Yeah, more than happy. Just drop me an email, and I'm happy to share. Let me just quickly have a look as well whether I have missed anything in the chat. Yeah, I can. Yeah, I will definitely share as much as I can. You can watch things. I think they're available for 3 months. If you got your ticket, I think they will be available, definitely. Yeah, there is lots of, on my blog, there is lots of booklets as well for speaking, for German. But again, if you're interested in another language, if you drop me an email, I've got contacts I can share with you where you could get either the Spanish or French version. Or if there is not one, you will have to possibly adapt it yourself. I know it's a lot of work, but it will be obviously of use long term. Yeah, I'm just looking. If you send me an email, guys, I'm not sure whether I will be able to see this chat afterwards and all of your emails. You can see my email address on the slide. If you drop me an email, what would you like? I will come back to you and I will answer and respond. I'm happy to share the slides as well, so that's not a problem. Let me just check one more time Q&A that I have answered everything. Could we access the recording? Yes, I think that recording is available for 3 months. Okay, so you can rewatch it again if you missed any parts of it because you were joining from another session. I'm just trying to look anything else. Go back to the chat. Okay, so here are also some ideas where obviously the research behind it comes from, but the resources are on my blog. Where it says Frau Basto MFL. Blogspot. So if you go on the resource page, there is lots and lots in there. You can check it. There is also on curriculum page, if anybody's interested in any curriculum stuff, there is our curriculum map, sequencing document, Ofsted knowledge organizer. There is tons and tons of things that you can download and use if you need to. Yes, so Mr. Courier Shop, yeah, there are some resources, 3 languages. I know that definitely his knowledge organizers are there. I'm not so sure about the work booklets. They will be there in Spanish, but I'm not sure whether they will be in French, but do check, yes. Okay, he shared lots, they're again free. People don't want money for it, so it's not like when you go on some of the sites and you have to pay for them. So these are all free. Right, I think I'm gonna stop sharing my screen, and I think I will be soon leaving. I can see people are writing comments. Yeah, I think we are running out of time. I think I will depart. If there is any more questions, not sure. Let me just check the Q&A. Lovely to see you all here. Thank you very much for coming and giving out your time on Saturday, after you've been all week at work and probably stressed and hectic like everybody is. So it's great that you took time to attend the session. I really do appreciate it. And have a lovely Saturday, and whatever other sessions you attend, make sure that you take also time for yourself, and have a bit of relaxing time as well. So sessions will be definitely recorded. You have access to them, I think, 3 months after the show, so you can catch up on them, and people will have their contact details, so you can reach out to them. I'm pretty sure about that. So thank you very much. Lovely to see you all. Thank you. Thank you very much. Bye-bye, everybody. Thank you.